Joining us to discuss this, former head of communications at Number 10, Jonathan Haslam. Jonathan, very good morning to you.
Morning, JH. How are you?
I'm very well, Jeremy and Rosie.
Good morning.
Great to be here.
Can you give us the context? Because I think people listening might think, why is this one word so important?
It's important to politicos, but out in the real world, it doesn't mean a hoot. What we've got to remember here is that Keir Starmer is on a tightrope. He is balancing his anti-Semitism and protecting what he's fought for in terms of cleaning up the Labour Party, but he's also keenly aware there are an awful lot of Muslim voters who will vote for Labour, and that balance is very difficult for him to address. And you see it in the Scottish Labour Party, where they've come out for an immediate ceasefire.
Yes.
And in the broader context, for us sitting back watching all of this nonsense around a word, everybody wants a ceasefire. All of the action seems to be directed at Israel. Now, it's right that Israel should face some pressure about this because of what you see going on in Gaza. But the other side of the coin is Hamas. And it takes two to have a ceasefire which is meaningful. And that's not why the pressure is being applied. And I think people would want to see and understand why that's the case and why it is that Starmer's getting such a hard time. So there's a balancing act before an election.
Yeah.
He's got to play it very, very carefully, not to give headlines to people, to say you can't win on anti-Semitism. And then there is the real world. We all want a ceasefire in Gaza, but we also want Hamas held to account. That's where we are. It's complex.
Ava disagreed totally with me over Santina. Peter Cardwell did. Agreed with me. I'm not sure whether Benjamin Netanyahu or Hamas, the terrorist organisation, open and close brackets, really give a damn. If Benjamin Netanyahu is ignoring, it seems, the advice and feelings of the White House, what's an opposition leader or even the... Are we relevant? Is it a ceasefire, as you quite rightly say, takes two sides? One now doesn't want a two-state solution. The other wants to eradicate people. At the end of the day, I'm not sure how some idiotic vote on Wednesday is going to change that, Jonathan. I'm not trying to be cynical.
No, but I mean, we, as a civilised country, we're entitled to, and it's right that we do have a point of view. We are a member of the Permanent Five at the United Nations. That counts for something still. And it's important that we speak up for the things that we see are right in the world, as well as calling out the things that are wrong. So do we have a little bit of authority? Well, we're not hypocritical about these matters. And I think it's important that we continue to say, if we are still sixth, seventh largest economy in the world, member of the P5, member of the NATO alliance, it's important that people hear what we've got to say, because otherwise you just leave a vacuum.
But I don't think they're going to make... The point I'm trying to make is I don't think it's going to make it. And I do actually
Jeremy, you can't avoid it. You can't ignore it.
Absolutely. But I like Jonathan's point as well. For a ceasefire to work, it takes two sides. And understandably, because of the humanitarian issue and what everybody is seeing could happen in Rafah, it's all about the Israelis. We mustn't forget that Hamas is a terrorist organisation whose battalions and soldiers are hidden within that population and are making whatever Israel's trying to do an impossible task.
Indeed, and we mustn't forget October the 7th, which was the worst massacre you could possibly imagine since the Holocaust. And it was quite deliberately aimed at upsetting the entirety of the Middle East. And what they saw as a drift towards some acceptance of the position of Israel from other Arab states and a reduction in their own authority. So we must never ignore all of that. I mean, there are rights and wrongs on both sides.
Absolutely.
But for us, all our political leaders to speak out and have an opinion, and for a country to have an opinion, I think is important. When we get down to what, of course, the politicos here enjoy so much, and, you know, your two newspaper reviewers demonstrated it, is this forensic analysis of a word and the way in which a senior politician, as Rishi Sunak does as well, have to look at individual words and see the impact that it has more broadly on the headlines.
For the Labour Party, right, this should be a really buoyant week. They've just won 2 by-elections. They've absolutely crushed the Conservative parties there, you know, overturning significant majorities. The conversation we're having is not about, oh, that amazing victory. Instead, it's about more awkward questions for Keir Starmer to have to sort of tackle. How do you think he's going to try and navigate this in a way that's positive for the party to say, look, can we, you know, talk about those big victories rather than constantly scrutinising places where he slips up?
Well, I think there are two sides to that again, because actually, when we're putting these questions to him, he could be our next Prime Minister very easily. And therefore, we need to see, and he needs to be tested by interviewers like yourselves and the people we have doing the reviews, the newspapers. It's important that he's tested and we see his mettle.
He was in Europe this weekend meeting 14 leaders of
Absolutely,
powers,
which, from a point of view of Labour, is incredibly good positioning because you're saying this guy could be walking up Downing Street. What's his point of view? Is he as strong as we think he's got? He has been, and therefore we test him. And therefore, I think that that's a good place to be. Sure, all right, you'd like to talk about by-elections, but they are 20 points ahead in the polls. They can take that. And they've now got a little bit of internal party management where we'll be forensically analysing potential rebels.
I guess my question would be on the back of what Rosie said very quickly. This slick machine that I fully accept. In the last 2 years of doing this, I think the way the Labour come out and they answer the questions, I think they are united. They look as if they're polished, they're on message, they're talking about fiscal responsibility. One wonders if they get in, because I remember the last Labour Party in government, I wonder how long it will take for the cracks to appear. Not, by the way, that the Conservative government isn't full of fissures, but do you know what I'm saying? I wonder. How do you keep a lid on that stuff?
With great respect, Jeremy, I think you have to say it's not quite as slick as you imagine. If you look at the way in which they dealt with Rochdale, which was
being
a
nice,
disaster.
mate. I'm doing my best, Jonathan.
I know you've got to be even-handed.
I don't think if he gets into number 10, I think he's going to find it very difficult to balance momentum and all these. I do. I think it's going to be a nightmare.
There's no money. So, I mean, everything that is
but even less if the Conservatives give out some tax cuts in about 3 weeks' time, which may be a bit of a political trap.
Watch the flip-flopping from Jeremy Hunt of, I think we can do it.
I don't think he's that exciting to flip-flop.
I find it bizarre that either party can criticise the other of flip-flopping, because it's just, no one's credible on it. If you were someone who'd never changed your mind, I think fair enough, you can say, right, you changed yours.
But Rosie, would the argument be that for a person to be a good politician, occasionally they do have to change their mind as situations change?
Well, there we go. Jonathan,
it's incredibly reasonable, Jeremy.
What the hell's wrong with me, man?